Have you ever felt that no matter how hard you try, no matter what you achieve, there's always a little voice inside saying, "Not enough, you're still not enough"? Imagine this. You just finished an important project, received praise from your colleagues, but instead of feeling proud, there's that small voice whispering, "Is that all? Others could have done it better." Have you ever felt that way? If your answer is yes, you are not alone. In fact, millions of adults experience this feeling every single day. And here's the truth, it's not your fault. It's actually a natural part of how humans are wired to survive, but it's amplified by modern society. Let me tell you about Eric. If you saw him walking down the street, you'd probably think he's perfectly ordinary, neatly dressed, polite, holding a stable job. His friends would say he's doing fine. But inside, Eric is fighting a quiet battle. Ever since he was a child, he's felt like he's never quite enough. His parents compared him to his older brother. Teachers praised him for being smart but said he lacked discipline. And his romantic relationships often ended in distance, leaving him wondering if something inside him was broken and couldn't be fixed. The important thing is, Eric's story is not rare. This feeling of not being enough is something many people carry throughout their lives. And the root of it isn't just insecurity, it's a psychological mechanism called conditional self-worth. The idea is that your value depends on meeting certain conditions, grades, achievements, money, appearance, approval from others. When these conditions aren't met, you don't just feel disappointed, you feel like you are the disappointment. And here's the thing. This feeling is nurtured from a very young age. Think about it. School tests, teacher comparisons, social media likes, ads that make you feel lacking, all send the same message. You have to achieve this. Have that, to be worthy. As we grow, we carry an invisible measuring stick, always a little longer than we can reach. No matter how much progress we make, the standard keeps shifting, and like Eric, we run endlessly on this treadmill, never reaching the finish line. Do you feel tired just thinking about it? I want you to imagine this, carrying a backpack full of stones every day. Each stone represents a belief like, I'm not smart enough, I'm not attractive enough, I'm not successful enough. At first, you can manage, but over time, no matter how strong you are, the weight wears you down. That's exactly how the feeling of not being enough erodes your sense of self, gradually convincing you that this lack is your true nature. From a professional perspective, I see this all the time in my practice. When working with adults, especially those navigating careers or building families, I often hear phrases like, "If I could just achieve a little more, I'd be okay." And when they achieve it, that inner voice continues, "Still not enough. You need more." This is what we call the treadmill effect, running endlessly without arriving. Running endlessly yet still feeling empty. Here's a simple scientific perspective. Thousands of years ago, our brains evolved to be highly sensitive to rejection, failure, and comparison because survival depended on it. If you weren't enough to contribute to the group, your chances of survival dropped dramatically. Today, that mechanism is still with us, but it's being exploited by modern society, social media, advertising, performance metrics, companies, all making you question, am I enough? And then, you run again, working harder, staying later, buying more, achieving more, and still never feeling satisfied. But here's a truth that few realize. Feeling not enough doesn't mean you're broken. It means you are human in a system that profits from your doubt. The very industries that create this feeling are the same ones selling you products to fix it. And I want you to understand this deeply. You are not broken. It's not your fault. You're simply living in a system designed to make you feel inadequate. So, what can you do? From years of experience with adults, the first step is awareness. You have to tell yourself, I'm feeling like I'm not enough. Bringing it into the light reduces its power. Next, try shifting perspective. Recognize this isn't a personal flaw, but a normal reaction to a comparison-driven society. This small shift can gently release shame and open a space to breathe. I also recommend practicing self-compassion. When you catch yourself saying, I'm not enough, ask, would I say this to someone I love? If the answer is no, try rephrasing it more gently. This seemingly small act, repeated over time, rewires the brain, helping you realize your value isn't based on accomplishments, but simply on your existence. Eric has begun this journey. And so can you. He hasn't silenced that inner voice. But he's learning to live with it differently, seeing himself with kind eyes. Finding enough in small moments, a conversation with a friend, watching a sunset, performing a small act of kindness. And here's the beautiful part. When we slowly recognize that our value isn't something to seek externally but something we already possess internally, life feels lighter, closer, and more genuine. So today, I want you to ask yourself, have you ever felt like you're not enough? Be honest with yourself, and if you have, start noticing each small moment, each action, each breath, and see that you are enough. Right here, right now. The truth is, you always have been enough. Sometimes, you just forget. Now, try to imagine a typical day in your life. You wake up, check your phone, scroll through social media, see people showing off achievements, trips, and perfect projects, and you ask yourself, am I falling behind? Am I good enough? Can you feel that voice inside you? It's subtle, quiet, but strong enough to pull you down, making you forget who you really are. Here's something I want to share with you. From my experience working with hundreds of adults, feeling not enough is not the truth, it's a psychological habit. It's like a well-worn path in your brain, making you react in a certain way even if your environment has changed. But here's the good news, the brain can change. Those paths can be rewired, if you know how. One of the simplest yet most effective tools I often introduce to my clients is keeping an enough list journal. Every evening, spend a few minutes writing down 3 things that made you feel enough today. They don't have to be big or impressive, just simple. You called your mom to check in. You got out of bed on time. You smiled at a stranger. When you do this consistently, you start to notice that your value doesn't come from accomplishments, it comes from the real, lived moments of your life. There's one story I always remember. A client named Lisa, 32, a project manager, always felt inadequate. She compared herself to colleagues, friends, and images online, but when I guided her to write an enough list each night, a few weeks later she told me, I don't know why, but I'm starting to feel enough. Not perfect, not extraordinary, just enough. And it feels strangely freeing. That's the power of recognizing your intrinsic value. But awareness alone isn't enough. We also need a break from constant comparison. I call it a comparison detox. Pick a day of the week, or even a few hours each day, to step away from social media. Turn off notifications. Avoid things that put you on someone else's measuring stick. It sounds simple, but it actually gives your nervous system a rest, reduces stress, and allows you to feel your own value without external proof. You'll realize that life is full of beautiful moments, and your own worth is not lacking. And one more thing, which I find incredibly important, is self-compassion. When you catch yourself saying, I'm not enough, ask, would I say this to someone I love? If the answer is no, try rephrasing it gently, as if comforting a close friend. This not only soothes feelings of inadequacy, but also changes how your brain reacts to yourself. Neuroscience research at the University of Wisconsin shows that regular self-compassion practice can actually change brain activity in areas related to emotion regulation. In other words, being kind to yourself is real, neurological medicine. You can combine all 3, journaling, comparison detox, and self-compassion. Start with small steps, but when repeated consistently, they create a cumulative effect. Gradually, you'll realize that the feeling of not enough no longer controls you. It may still appear, but you won't be swept away by it. You won't be running on that endless treadmill anymore. You start living to the rhythm of your own life. I want you to imagine this morning. You wake up, look in the mirror, and instead of asking, am I good enough? You say to yourself, I'm enough. I did my best today. I am enough right now. That feeling spreads gently, like a cool breeze on a hot summer afternoon. It doesn't erase challenges, but it helps you move through the world without the heavy weight of comparison and self-criticism dragging you down. From my professional experience, here's what I want to emphasize. Your self-worth isn't something you have to find outside of yourself. It's already there. From the very first breath you took, you already had value. Pressures, expectations, comparisons, they just make you forget. And we can learn to remember. We can learn to allow ourselves to be enough right now. Whether we succeed or fail, whether we're perfect or flawed, Eric is still on his journey. And I want you to know that. Like him, we are all learning to live differently with that inner voice. Not to let it defeat us, but to let it become part of the experience, part of our humanity. Look back at each moment, each breath, each small action. Did you care for someone today? Did you notice the beauty around you? Were you kind to yourself? Each of these moments is a sign that you are enough. And now, I want you to pause for a moment. Take a deep breath, close your eyes, and ask yourself, can I allow myself to be enough right now? Without having to prove anything or achieve anything? Hold that question in your heart. It will be a guiding light, a lighthouse, on the days when you feel like you're not enough. Now, let's talk about how we can actually step out of that cycle, the cycle of feeling not enough. And I want you to listen closely, because this is the part many people overlook. Stepping out doesn't mean you will instantly feel completely okay, completely enough, or completely confident. No, stepping out means learning to live with it in a different way, a way where it doesn't control you, while still honoring your own feelings. I want you to imagine a garden. When you plant seeds, you can't expect flowers to bloom tomorrow. But you know that if you care for it daily, watering, pruning dead leaves, over time, flowers will bloom. Living with the feeling of not enough is the same. It takes patience, care, and sometimes persistence with yourself. You will fail. You will forget. The old voice will roar louder. But each time you practice, whether journaling, practicing self-compassion, or doing a comparison detox, you are planting seeds, changing the neural soil of your brain, creating the conditions for your intrinsic value to grow. Let's go back to Eric. One day, he realized that even though people still praised or criticized him as usual, he no longer felt that sharp pain every time he heard criticism. He didn't disappear into the darkness of self-blame. Instead, he began observing himself with curiosity. What did I do today? Was I kind? Did I notice a beautiful moment? Those small questions, rather than creating pressure, helped him gradually change how he evaluated himself. He learned that success or failure didn't determine his value. His value was in how he showed up, how he lived, and how he interacted with the world. From a professional perspective, I see that this way of looking, measuring self-worth through presence rather than accomplishments, is one of the most important shifts. When you learn to measure your worth from within, instead of from external achievements, you experience true freedom. You stop chasing fame, money, or recognition like a rabbit chasing a fake light. Instead, you start choosing what truly matters to you. Here's another example. I worked with Mark, a 28-year-old software engineer, who always felt inferior to his colleagues. He would stay up late, work overtime, trying to prove himself, yet the feeling of inadequacy never went away. When we began practicing small steps, writing his enough list, taking breaks from social media, and practicing self-compassion, Mark told me that for the first time, he felt enough without needing anyone's validation. Not because he was perfect, but because he recognized that his value was in existing, in caring, in learning, and in living sincerely. Now, I want you to reflect. How many times have you allowed yourself a break from comparison? How many times have you noticed the present moment and told yourself, I am enough? If you haven't done this yet, today is a perfect time to start. You don't need achievements. You don't need recognition. You don't need anyone else to say you're worthy. Your value has always been there. You've just forgotten. From a scientific standpoint, this practice is more than philosophy. Neuroscience research shows that when you practice self-compassion, your brain changes the way it processes emotions, reducing stress, anxiety, and depression. When you write down the moments that make you feel enough, your brain begins to recognize that value doesn't only come from accomplishments or praise, but from lived experience itself. In other words, you're reprogramming yourself to live with a sense of enough, instead of chasing an endless standard imposed by society. And I want you to try a small exercise right now. Close your eyes for a moment. Take a deep breath, and imagine seeing yourself through the eyes of a close friend. All the fatigue, pressure, and feelings of inadequacy are there. But you don't judge. You simply observe and say, you are enough. You are doing your best. You are worthy. That first little sense of relief, no matter how small, is the first step in realizing that freedom begins with allowing yourself to be enough. Right now. And finally, remember this. No one can create your value for you. And no one can take away the value you already have. You are not your grades, your achievements, or comparisons with others. You are something deeper than all of that. You are existence itself. Experience itself. The way you show up in this world. And that is where change begins. You can step out of the cycle, not by running faster, but by stopping, breathing, and recognizing that you are enough. Right now, imagine living a whole day without being controlled by the voice of, not enough. While still feeling every small moment of joy, every kind action, every breath. That is freedom. That is the ease we all deserve to experience. And today, I want you to ask yourself, can I allow myself to be enough right now? Without needing to prove or achieve anything? Keep this question in your heart. Observe it each day, and you will realize that slowly, you are learning to live with a sense of enough. Not perfect, not finished, just enough. And it has always been enough. Now, let's dive a little deeper into daily practices. I want you to imagine this, every morning. Instead of checking your phone first thing, take a few minutes to look in the mirror and say to yourself, I am enough. Right now, I am enough. It may sound simple, but the power of repeating this consistently every day can truly change the way you feel about yourself. And when you do this, you're laying the foundation for a different journey, a journey where your inner voice is no longer the enemy, but a companion, reminding you to care for yourself, be kind, and appreciate yourself. Imagine a work scenario. You're about to give a presentation. Your heart is racing, and the voice inside whispers, you're not smart enough. Others will laugh at you. Instead of letting it control you, try pausing, taking a deep breath, and saying to yourself, I've prepared. I've done my best. I am enough to try. Just this simple step can transform your entire experience. You'll feel more confident, lighter, and most importantly, you won't be running away from yourself anymore. I also want to talk about reframing failure. Many people live with the feeling of not enough because they remember failures longer than successes. A small mistake from 10 years ago still leaves a mark in the mind, while recent achievements are brushed aside as insignificant. But if you learn to see failure as a learning experience, as a necessary step to grow, you'll realize that failure doesn't diminish your value. Instead of saying, I failed, I'm inadequate, you can say, I didn't succeed this time, but I learned something new, and that still has value. This is what I call reprogramming your perception of events. And it is incredibly powerful. Another tool I often suggest is a comparison detox. Try taking a day in the week, or a few hours each day, away from social media, ads, and other sources that make you measure yourself against others. It sounds simple, but you'll be amazed at how much stress decreases and how self-confidence begins to return. When you stop constantly comparing yourself to other people's highlight reels, you start to realize that you were enough all along. And your life is beautiful and whole in its own way. From my experience working with adults, I've found that these changes don't happen overnight, but small steps build cumulative impact. You journal, practice self-compassion, do comparison detox. Each action is a building block laying the foundation for intrinsic value. And when enough blocks are placed, you'll start moving through the world with a sense of ease that you once thought was impossible. Let me share another story. Julia, 27, a graphic designer, once felt invisible pressure from her parents, colleagues, and herself. With every project, every presentation, she asked, am I enough? When she began practicing the enough list, taking breaks from social media, and practicing self-compassion, she realized that her value wasn't in recognition or outstanding achievement, but in how she showed up, how she cared for herself and others, and how she lived each moment. From that point, Julia began to feel more peaceful, more confident, and gradually freed herself from the weight of comparison and self-blame. The key thing I want you to recognize is this. Intrinsic value is not something you have to earn, it's something you have to remember. You've had it since birth. You don't need to prove it, compete for it, or achieve anything to deserve it. Every breath, every act of kindness, every moment of present awareness is a reminder that you are enough. I want you to try this once more. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath, and ask yourself, can I allow myself to be enough right now? Without proving or achieving anything? Keep this question in your heart. It is a guiding light on days when you feel exhausted, when your inner voice reminds you that you're not enough. When you allow yourself to feel enough, you are stepping out of the endless cycle of comparison and self-blame. And here's what I want you to carry with you. Freedom begins by allowing yourself to be enough. Right here, right now. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to accomplish everything. You just need to show up. Every small step you take, whether journaling, detoxing from comparison, or practicing self-compassion, is a step toward freedom. You'll realize that life, with all its imperfections, is still beautiful and worth living. Eric, Julia, Mark, they are all on this journey. And I want you to know that, like them, you can learn to live with your inner voice differently. Not to be defeated by it, but to make it part of your experience, part of your humanity. Every day you move forward. Every moment you recognize your value. You are planting seeds for a life that is full, light, and meaningful. And here's the most important part that I want you to really hear. You're enough right now. Not when you finish a project. Not when you achieve something. Not when someone else recognizes you. You are enough, right here, right now, simply because you exist, simply because you are breathing, simply because you are alive. Let that sink in. You might feel a little strange because for so many years, you've been taught that your value has to be proven, earned, or approved by others. But today, I want you to try something new. Allow yourself to be enough without needing to prove anything. Think about the past few days, the moments you compared yourself, blamed yourself, or felt not enough. Now imagine putting all that pressure down. Take a deep breath and say to yourself, I did my best today. And I am enough. This feeling isn't an instant miracle, but it's the first step out of the cycle that millions of people around the world get stuck in. One thing I always remind my clients is to treat your inner voice like a close friend. When you hear it say, "You're not enough," don't react by blaming or rejecting yourself. Instead, ask, "What would I say to a dear friend if they said this?" Then answer yourself gently, with compassion. When practiced consistently, your brain begins to recognize this new response, reducing stress and anxiety, and the feeling of inadequacy slowly gives way to peace and confidence. Try practicing these 3 small but powerful steps I've shared. 1. Keep an enough list, journal, every evening. Write down 3 things that made you feel enough today. They don't have to be big or extraordinary. Maybe you woke up on time, reached out to someone you care about, smiled at a stranger. These moments are proof that you lived fully and with intrinsic value. 2. Comparison detox. Take some time away from social media, ads, or anything that makes you measure yourself against others. It sounds simple, but you'll be surprised how much your nervous system relaxes, and how quickly you begin to realize that your value doesn't depend on achievements or external recognition. 3. Self-compassion. Whenever you hear your inner voice say, "You're not enough," turn it into a gentle, kind message, as if you were speaking to a close friend. This practice not only soothes feelings of inadequacy but also rewires your brain's response to yourself. Most importantly, I want you to remember that this journey is long-term. It won't happen in a day or two, but each small step creates a cumulative effect. Every time you practice, every moment you pause and recognize that you are enough, you are planting seeds for a life that is lighter, freer, and more complete. Now, imagine this. A world where people live from a sense of enough. Instead of running endlessly to prove their worth, students learn for curiosity, not fear of failure. Employees work for joy and contribution, not to prove competence. Relationships are built on respect and acceptance, not worry and comparison. It may sound distant, but you can start with yourself, in small, intentional actions. And remember the stories of Eric, Julia, and Mark. They all once felt not enough. But they began to change. Step by step, they learned to live with their inner voice differently, recognize intrinsic value, and allow themselves to be enough without proving it. You can do the same. You can step out of the cycle, take a deep breath, and tell yourself, "I am enough." Before we finish, I want you to ask yourself, have you ever truly allowed yourself to be enough? Have you ever stopped, breathed, and recognized that all the pressures and expectations do not define your worth? If not, today is the moment to begin. Remember, every small step matters. Every breath that recognizes your own value is a victory.